This episode of Juice Guru Radio is brought to you by Try Best, making healthy living easy.
Welcome to Juice Guru Radio. Discover what the magic and power of juicing can do for you. And now, your host, best-selling author of The Complete Idiot's Guide to Juice Fasting, Steve Prusak.
Well, hello, I'm Steve Prusak. Welcome to the show. We've got Caryn Hartglass here, 30-year vegan, combines science with practical knowledge from real-life experience, lecturing about the healing benefits of a plant-based diet. She's co-founder of the nonprofit Responsible Eating and Living, or REAL. We'll hear all about her and all the work she's doing and more. So stay tuned. Get yourself a juice, some tea, or some water. We'll be back right after this with Caryn Hartglass.
Did you know you can make a great living in the hottest new business trend today? The Juice Guru Certification Program is the world's first online course to give you the knowledge and marketing skills to excel as a juicing coach and start making money in no time. Find out more at juicecoachtraining.com.
Juice Guru Radio.
Hi, welcome back to the show. I'm Steve Prusak. It's so great to be with you. We've got Caryn Hartglass with her. I want to bring her on right now. She's been on Dr. Oz, Geraldo at Large, 2020, CNN, hosts the weekly It's All About Food show on the Progressive Radio Network over with our friend Gary Noel. We love the work they're doing there. Let's welcome to the show right now, Caryn Hartglass.
Hey, everybody.
Caryn, I can go on and on about your bio and all the incredible work you're doing, and I want you to share your story. So, starting with how you overcame advanced ovarian cancer, it's really a startling story. So can you share that and how you got into all this?
Sure. Well, I have a lot of stories. I can't all tell them today.
We'll get through as many as we could, though, I promise.
Right. So can I back up a little? Because the cancer story is important because not just because I had advanced ovarian cancer, stage 3C with a 10 to 20% survival rate, and I lived instead of died. But I was a vegan, and I was on a healthy path, and I was one of those folks who got a bad disease who thought she was invulnerable. So when I was about 15 years old, I decided I wanted to be a vegetarian. I met someone in class who said something about being a vegetarian, and all of a sudden the light went off, and I realized I didn't want to eat. I realized who was on my plate, and I didn't want to be a part of that anymore. And it took a while before I became a real vegetarian because I didn't even know what a real vegetarian was at 15 years old. That was a long time ago without internet and not much information available to me. But I stopped eating red meat and chicken, and then along the way I stopped eating fish. And that was when I went to Epcot Center in Disney World when it first opened up, and they had this Food for Future exhibit, and I saw these big white tanks with fish in them. And I thought, if this is how we have to raise fish, then I'm not eating them. And that was my Finding Nemo moment. Fish are your friends, not food. And then I was 30 when I finally gave up eggs and dairy. And then I was 48 when I was diagnosed with advanced ovarian cancer. And at this point, I was executive director of Earth Save International, which was founded by John Robbins. And I was connected to a lot of alternative health experts and practitioners. And I was trying to do what everybody was saying I should do. And then my belly just started getting bigger. And I thought I had fast-growing uterine, fibroids, premenopausal. I read all about it in the internet. It all made sense. And then I had surgery, which I was really trying to avoid. But I got to a point where I couldn't. And I woke up and they said, you have ovarian cancer and you need chemo. So what I realized months later was I started as a teenager with a problem. And my menstrual cycle was very heavy and long. And I didn't know if that was right or wrong. It was the only body I knew that was doing what it was doing. And nobody really wanted to talk about it. And so I started with a problem. And then to aggravate the problem, there are more people talking about this now, but I used to use 3 super tampons at a time loaded with dioxin. I didn't know that. Most people don't even know it today. But I got this tripper super giant dose of dioxin as a teenager and as a young adult. And I feel like that aggravated a problem that I already had. That first problem was either environmental or DNA or maybe a combination in my diet. And because I don't think cancer is caused by one thing. And I don't think it's cured by one thing. So there are all these different factors. And then by the time I was 48, around 50 years old is when your body is like transitioning, and all kinds of interesting things they say happens around that time. And so this was my interesting thing. And I had cancer.
Wow. And then, I mean, especially with everything we hear and Earth Save and John Robbins in the book and everything that we were learning about prevention and like, this is the way to go. And would you say you were eating a healthy vegan diet? Were you getting the fruits and vegetables? Because a lot of vegans will do the comfort food.
I was on a relatively healthy diet. I did occasionally have treats like cakes and cookies. I wasn't a big junk food eater, but I would have them sometimes. What's interesting, and I apologize to any raw foodists out there, but I think this was a part of my imbalance. I was a raw vegan for 2 years, 2004, 2005. And I would eat a lot of mono meals, a lot of fruit. And I have this kind of theory, and I have no proof, just my talking with my body, is that my body
intuition.
kind of...
There's something to be said for intuition, you know?
Yeah, my body had encapsulated the toxins and protected them from the rest of me. And then as I went raw, all of that stuff was kind of like wearing away. And then I was eating so much fruit that maybe all that extra fruit fed the sugar for the cancer. I know there's a lot of studies now that say eating whole fruit is better than eating juice and refined sugars, and it's not the same. But I was eating a lot of fruit. I would eat a watermelon for lunch, you know. And then my belly started growing. So I went back to eating some cooked foods, and I was trying all kinds of things, and nothing was working. And then finally, I had the surgery. But I was very lucky because, number one, I think if I hadn't been on this path, I would have been dead a long time ago. I just know it. My diet was keeping me strong and healthy. I was losing tons of blood for decades, and I was never tired. I wasn't tired until the last few months when it was really out of control.
Right.
But
But you're probably anemic, right?
I was anemic the last 5 or 6 months, and I was off and on anemic for the 2 years before my surgery. So there were clues, but nobody really knew.
Interesting, and a good point to bring up, because there's no panacea, where people think if I give up my meat and dairy and eggs, then it's going to be the cure-all and I'm never going to get sick. I mean, I lost a really good friend of mine to cancer who was hardcore vegan, mostly raw, juicing, and, died of cancer in his, at the age of 40.
Yeah, well, what I've learned is, as I mentioned before, cancer is not caused by one thing.
Right.
And the environment can have a tremendous impact. So for me, it was definitely the environment. And the stuff I was putting in my body that wasn't food related. I was just putting poison from a tampon in my body. But there's a lot more to it. And the healing part, there's a lot more to it. I think emotional issues play a big part. And I consider myself a very stable, together person. But when I was heading into my third surgery in less than 15 months, I thought, okay, I really got to do everything here. And I've addressed the nutrition, and I'm meditating, and I'm juicing every day, and I'm eating as many green foods and mushrooms as I can, and I'm taking the big supplements, turmeric and concentrated broccoli sprouts and everything. I said I have to address the emotional component. And I had a friend in Canada who did Reiki and some neuro-linguistic programming and a variety of techniques. And I went to see him for a weekend, and he was fantastic. When I first met him through email, I could feel energy coming out of his emails. It's a crazy thing, but this guy has a talent for energy. And not all Reiki masters are any good. This guy was so good. And he did a number of things with me that brought out some issues that I never really thought mattered. And so I faced them and accepted them, and I moved on. And I don't know if that made a difference, but I was going to hit everything that I could.
Right. And stress, they say, is a big thing too. Were you under a lot of stress?
Maybe. Maybe. I don't know. Life is stressful.
So you went you did some surgery, and then you changed your diet at that point, right? You tried to get more of the greens in?
Yeah, I tweaked it. I improved it. So I'm lucky because I'm connected to a lot of great people, and Joel Fuhrman is a friend and colleague of mine, and he was fantastic during that period. And he helped evaluate the supplements I was taking, and I was totally into his line of diet at that point in time. I wasn't eating any refined anything, and I was definitely eating as many greens as I could, and the mushrooms, all the key foods, and juicing every day. And
Yay, we love hearing that.
Juicing every day. I juiced every day for over 10 years. And
wow.
Yeah. It was my medicine, my lifestyle. So
you were doing the nutrient dense, folks. Dr. Joel Fuhrman, he's our medical advisor for our brand, and so you're hitting all the checks for me. I love it. Like, all right, I'm glad we got her on the show. No, but I love his protocols. I mean, the nutrient dense and the G bombs. Where you're doing all the.
Don't you want to live forever? I love when he says that.
So you were strictly following it, but you say were. So now I'm wondering. Now we're all wondering. You were following his protocols. Did you get away from that, and where are you now on the journey?
I'm minusculely occasionally away from that, but not really. I mean, my days are kale salads, kale smoothies. I don't juice every day, but I juice frequently. And everything's green. Mushrooms are always there. Onions are always there. I eat beans. I rarely eat bread. I rarely eat pasta. If you want to know what I'm eating, actually, I have a daily blog where I post everything I'm eating, and I have over 1,260 posts.
Oh, well, that's the way to do it. And we've got the link we're going to put under the show notes. What's the best?
It's at responsibleeatingandliving.com.
Got it. Responsibleeatingandliving.com. We're going to have a link to that under the show notes, too.
Yeah. So, I travel, and I just came back from being the musical director for Into the Woods for a theater company in San Jose. And my partner Gary, he was the stage director. I did the music. And we were living in different places that weren't necessarily ideal for food. But we did the best we can. We did eat out sometimes. And when you eat out, there are always compromises. You do the best you can here. But you can see it all at my blog. I tell the truth.
That's fun.
Everything's there.
I'm going to check that out. And actually, people in the chat room are asking the website. I actually put it in there for you guys. But if you're listening on the radio, it's responsibleeatingandliving.com. And we'll have a link to that under the show notes at Juice Guru Radio. And this is a lot of fun. And we're here on Juice Guru Radio, of course, as you know, and live with Caryn Hartglass to our community at Juice Guru Rewind, and hearing all about the journey. Vegan for 30 years, ups and downs along the path, the journey to get there, and where it led, and what we're doing now. Because I'll tell you, if you're not watching the video, you can't see Caryn. I mean, you're a picture of vibrancy and health. And
I'm 60.
Wow. Wow.
I like to say, and I can kick.
Yeah, that gives it's the new 60. 60 is the new 40, I think, for real. Yeah. Looking at Caryn, we can see that to be true. So you're doing something right. And it's not going to be the vegan junk foods that gets us there. It's got to be the healthy living and all the other things you're talking about too. Because it's not just what we eat and on our plate. That's part of it. But you're talking about the energy work and the overcoming stress and all the other things that now you've got tips for getting more greens in the diet. Now our listeners, they're getting the juices in, maybe the daily juicing. Maybe they're thinking, maybe I should eat more plant foods and this is a good idea. But how do we get more greens in? What were some of the tips you had for that?
Right. Well, again, at responsibleeatingandliving.com, we have lots of recipes, and I think we even have a category for greens. But they're the basics, like the juicing and the smoothies. And I make these super smoothies. Sometimes I call them sludgies because they're very big.
I'd love to hear. Or do we have to go to the site to look? Because I want to look at that. Because I love juicing, but I love smoothies too. So
what I do is I take an entire head of kale, and I put it in the juicer. In the Vitamix. And I add maybe a cup of water just to blend it all up. And then I add stuff to it to make it palatable. But I
got to get you a Dynapro. Have you heard of these new blenders that you suck the air out and it doesn't get oxidized? I'm telling you, like, they did a side-by-side comparison of how it doesn't oxidize, so it'll stay good for 3 days, and it's more nutrient-rich. I've been using my Dynapro like every day now. It's the next level.
You can send me whatever you want, and I will gratefully accept it and use it.
Let's see what we could do. Diane was saying, "Wow, you look great." You know,
yes, thank you.
Saying,
I'm going to talk more about greens, but can I add one more thing about my cancer treatment?
I didn't know we weren't complete. Please.
Okay, so there are a bunch of people out there, and I have a great deal of respect for them, that healed their cancer without conventional Western means. I am not one of them. I had 3 major surgeries. And I had 2 rounds of chemotherapy, 2 rounds of 4-month each long rounds of chemotherapy. I did the chemo because I consulted with Dr. Joel Furman, who doesn't necessarily promote using chemo. But when you have a really aggressive cancer and changing your diet isn't going to work fast enough when it's really, really aggressive. And we're all individuals, and I made the choice to do the chemo. And the first time I did the standard chemo cocktail for ovarian cancer, and unfortunately, it didn't work for me. So I had a little residual tumor left from the surgery. My surgeon said he got everything, but he didn't. And everybody said the chemo would get it, and it didn't. And then my surgeon said, we'll have more surgery, and it'll be easy, and we'll get it out. And he looked around for 3 hours, and then he told me I was cancer-free, the scans were wrong, there's nothing in there. It turns out, I don't even think he looked at my films because he operated in the wrong place. He gave me a big new scar that wasn't where the tumor was. And for the next 3 months, I felt really bad. And then I ended up finding better surgeons when the scan showed that the tumor was now bigger, and they took it out. And then I went for more chemo, but this time I had chemosensitivity testing, so that they tested fresh tumor on chemo cocktails to see which ones would respond to my kind of cancer. And what I want to say is John Robbins led me to Keith Block, who runs the Block Center outside of Chicago. And 12 years ago, it was really innovative because they did integrative cancer treatment with chemotherapy. I had massages, and they offered meditation and a huge list of supplements. I was spending like $800 a month on supplements, but it made a big difference. I loved going there. I never had a bad time. I flew to Chicago and back to New York, and then I was doing a musical in California. I flew from California to Chicago. I felt good. I mean, I felt a little tired. I never had any nausea or vomiting, and I had really aggressive chemo. So sometimes it's necessary. I don't know if it made the difference, but I'm here.
I mean, Robin Quivers from the Howard Stern show, the sidekick, you know about her journey?
Yes.
So she did conventional and changed her diet, went vegan.
Yep.
And, it was a combination, but had tons of energy throughout the chemo because of the diet, because she was eating plant foods and, you know.
It all matters. Yeah.
Yeah, well.
Okay, so back to
what goes in that smoothie? So you said a whole head of kale.
Yeah, and then I add whatever I've got to make it palatable. So I might add a banana. I'll definitely add berries, frozen berries. Sometimes I add a little peanut butter or some raw nut or seed. If I have a little coconut milk, I might add that or some almond milk. Now, I don't buy the commercial almond milks and coconut milks. I tend to make them myself. No added sugar. I drink soy milk. That's just soybeans and water. No added sugar. And depending on what I have around, sometimes I'll put maca in there. Sometimes I'll put flax seeds and chia seeds, that kind of thing. But it's thick. And what I always tell people about smoothies. So
do you use water as the base? Or are you adding, and then add coconut milk?
I'll use water. I'll use water.
Water, and then add coconut milk or almond milk or something to the water? Or do you stay with just coconut water or just almond milk, or do you mix it up?
I mix it up. It's never the same.
That's the key, isn't it?
But the key is to sip it and chew it not to guzzle it. And it lasts a long time, and you digest in the mouth, and you get everything you can out of it.
That's why we get you the blender, and that way it's not oxidized, so it doesn't, when we cut our apple and it gets brown, this way it doesn't oxidize it. And they did a comparison, actually, at Expo West. I was at TriBest. We work with them, and they had blended just apples, green apples, in a regular blender and in, oxidize, using the vacuum seal. And after 3 days, the conventional blender was just brown sop. And then the vacuum seal was this vibrant green. Like, it really works when we take the air out of the canister and blend it. It's the next level. And when we're making our smoothies, I'm just excited because I've been using it every day. I'm like, wow, this is just amazing. I could taste the difference and feel the difference.
And then, so there's raw greens in salads, obviously, and there's so many different ways to make a salad and what you can put on it and what kind of dressings you can use. Our dressings are typically a raw nut or seed that we blend with lemon juice or a vinegar, and we might add some other things to it to give it flavor, but we have sunflower seed dressings and pumpkin seed dressings and almond dressings, and they're all delicious. And you can get those recipes at responsibleeatingangliving.com.
I love it because,
and it's free.
Some people will just, pick up the store shelf, with all the additives and the preservatives and the salt and the sugar and to make it yourself like that natural, and it's so easy, right?
Yeah, right. Sometimes we'll use collard greens as a wrap. The raw collard green's a little rough, so we tend to steam them. And then we might have a bunch of different things, grains and beans and sauces, and we'll roll them up in the collard green. Or sometimes we'll do it in a romaine leaf. The green leaves are great for wraps. I've thrown kale in my corn muffins when I've made corn muffins. I always try and green up everything that I can.
Fun.
There's a lot of things. Of course, greens can go in soups, stews. My partner Gary, we both cook, and we both have our own different styles of cooking. So he has that more manly food stuff, the meat and potatoes, only they're vegan. So he likes to make, what does he call it? He calls it a Joe's Special, because in California, in San Jose, is Original Joe's. I don't know if you've ever been there. And they had a Joe's Special, which was eggs and meats and who knows whatever.
Oh, but Eat at Joe's. I see that. I'm like, what is that?
Yeah, it's been there a long time. But he'll make it with kale or spinach and some tofu. And the batter is like a chickpea flour and water batter, some herbs and spices. Sometimes he'll add a little tempeh, like a tempeh bacon taste. We don't buy them in the store. We kind of make our own. And he'll make this frittata, or like an omelette kind of frittata thing. And it's loaded with greens, and it's fantastic. It's a great brunch.
Oh, that's
We're
nice.
always cooking.
That sounds easy, too. Do you put it in like a stainless steel cast iron?
We use cast iron. And
nice.
It can go from the stovetop into the oven to kind of bake it up a little bit. It's really fantastic.
Did you do any other cleansing, water cleansing, juice cleansing, anything like that on your health journey?
Well, that's an interesting question. I did do an all-water, 3-week all-water fast in 2000, which was before I was diagnosed with cancer. And I did it with under Dr. Furman's supervision. I think it was in 2000 or 1999 or somewhere along there. And I loved it. But I still got cancer.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing.
We don't know everything.
Yeah. Right, we don't know everything. So I
like to say, though, as long as you're alive, there's hope.
I mean, I would think doing that water fast, there were changes, right? You must have had, must have.
Yeah, I lost 20 pounds. I looked great. It was fun. People think I'm nuts. It was fun. I loved how it slowed me down. And there was this outdoor mall near the fasting house. I would walk there. And as I walked at my own pace, everybody else was like this in front of me and around me, and everybody was so much faster. because I was going at this really
Right.
slow pace.
Yeah, I just did a week on water like a month ago. It was the best thing ever. But it's not recommended. Like if, I don't say do it. You've got to work your way up to be able to do it. And there should be supervision. I didn't because I've done lots of cleansing to get to that point where I could do a week.
The first week, you don't need supervision. Well, I'm not going to say everybody.
Right.
But the first week, if you're already eating a healthy diet and you're at a healthy weight, the first week you should be.
But, if you're eating a standard American diet and you do a few days on water and all that is released, that's not advised.
Not advisable.
We err on the side of caution because everyone's on a different journey on that. But the health conscious people that we're talking to, which is this show, I would say, I agree that they can do a week. And it's great. So, great. And let's talk more about the work you're doing to get the message out. There's lots of things over at the website. And again, we've got under the show notes for responsibleeatingandliving.com. And anything else you're doing to get the message out? I know you've got a book coming.
Well, I had a chapter in a book called 25 Women Who Have Survived Cancer.
Right.
And that was with a bunch of big names, Patti LuPone, some other.
That's what I'm looking at here. Okay.
And it's a really fun story. It's a spiritual story. I recommend getting it and reading it. I had some dreams, and John Robbins was in one of those, was in the particular important dream, and that led me to a variety of things. It's tied to the artist Gustav Klimt's famous painting, the Adele Bloch-Bauer, which the movie Woman in Gold was about. But it's a fascinating story, and it's in that book.
Awesome. And again, you got the website. So before we close out the radio show here, Caryn, anything to say in closing? Your story is so important because people, there's a lot of misconceptions about all this, and your journey really shows that there's other ways to look at health and why we do what we do and how to do it right and all the other components. It's so many things. But any words of advice for those that are listening that are, they're juicing and looking to get healthier and, connect the dots?
Sure. Well, I'm celebrating my 30-year anniversary as being vegan. I went vegan in June of 1988.
Wow.
And it was an interesting time. I had been vegetarian and I was working on giving up dairy. And I had the same kind of thoughts that a lot of people do. How can I give up cheese? How can I give up butter? I thought I'd made the best New York cheesecake. And I can now make the best New York cheesecake with no dairy, but it's still not a healthy thing to eat. And it was a very different time. I was an engineering consultant and I was doing a 3-month tour in Israel, and I thought that would be a great place to do it because there would always be hummus, and I wouldn't be bothered by friends and family who were worried about what I was doing because I was eating on my own most of the time. And now Israel's like the #1 vegan spot on the planet.
I know.
They didn't know that back then, 30 years ago, when I was trying to tell everybody about it, but it was a great place to go vegan. And I've seen so much change in 30 years.
Right. Let's not even talk about the Impossible Burger. Have you heard about that one?
Yes. I've tried it. And
is it good? I mean, I would never eat that, but I'm like, but everyone's eating it.
Exactly.
I don't know if I would eat it.
I have very mixed feelings about it. But the reason why I became a vegetarian was because I didn't want to kill animals. I didn't want to cause pain and suffering. That's my bottom line. That's my foundation. It just so happens that when done properly, it's the best thing for your health, and it's the best thing for the environment. Those are bonuses. And the Impossible Burger is not a whole food. And I love what I eat. I love all the foods that I eat. And I don't need an Impossible Burger. And we make our own kind of burgers when we want to have a burger made with whole grains and beans and herbs and spices. It's fantastic. The recipes at responsibleeatingandliving.com. Our Healthy World Burger. It's great. But it's not convenient because you have to make it. And a lot of people, it's just amazing, the mindset of many people where they feel like they have to have certain things. And there's plenty of things you don't have to have, and your life can be a lot better if you would just let go. But people think they need their burgers, and so, some young young guys, techies, they got investors going, and they're making these burgers. If you've ever tried some of the faux meats, the meat analogs from like Thailand that these monks have been making for hundreds of years, they're amazing. But they haven't been marketing to put it out there. So theirs doesn't get the press that these burgers do from...
So there's not, it's not like this groundbreaking. It's, you know, these things have been around for a while. They're just marketing it in a new way kind of deal.
Yes.
That's good to know, so I don't have to try it. Thank you for that.
You don't.
You know, it's also GMO. But
yeah,
Caryn Hartglass, Caryn, I'll let you get those final words in. It's so many, got to get you back on the show again because there's so many different things we could talk about. It's very exciting.
Thank you. I could talk all day about food, and I do.
You really are an inspiration. So, yeah, to just sum it up, and is there a newsletter that our listeners can subscribe to hear more from you?
You can subscribe to our website. We don't put something out regularly, maybe once a month, maybe not even. And it's pretty much a summary of what's been going on, our new recipes, the radio shows, and if we've been doing anything in particular. We're likely going to start some live events in New York soon, something we haven't done. I used to do a lot of them with EarthSave when I ran EarthSave back in the day, and I'm thinking of starting them up because even though we can reach a lot more people on the internet, and it's a beautiful thing, there's nothing like face-to-face interaction. I feel like that's important.
I love it. And I've been vegan 25 years. So when I first went vegan in the early 90s back on the East Coast, EarthSave was like everything. So to know you were so connected to that, it's just such an honor for me to talk to you. It's so exciting, something I would have never even imagined back then. So thank you, Caryn, so much for being on the show, sharing your journey, your message, your story. I can't wait to try your recipes, to be honest. I'm like, I got to get those and download them. Thank you again for being on the show, though.
Okay, thank you for having me.
This has been phenomenal. Caryn Hartglass, right here on Juice Guru Radio. I'm Steve Prusak, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Juice Guru Radio. Find out more about us at juicegururadio.com. Until next time, get your juice on.